Hi, this is Chrissy from Hang to Dry, and I'm going to go ahead and run through with you really quickly kind of the process that we go through as we introduce a new design, either for our applique shirt customers in our Etsy store at www.hangtodry.etsy.com or as an applique design that is available for the home embroidery market. We're going to go ahead and get started today in Photoshop. And as I'm designing, I like to design with a little bit of an end goal in mind, knowing that we prefer to use our 7 by 7 inch hoop. And that's just kind of the design size that we like to work with. So I go ahead and make my canvas reflect that. And I'm going to go ahead and design the bottom of our boat there. Doesn't look much like a boat, does it? But we're going to get there. And there are a lot of different ways to come about this. Really what I do here in Photoshop is a very rough outline because most of what I do takes place in Embird as I'm digitizing. I'm going to go ahead and take off the bottom of this boat here because I have a couple of little tricks in mind of things that I'm excited to kind of do with this design. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to make my sails. And this is going to be our left sail here. Go ahead and resize this so that it's a more manageable size that we're working with, because that was obnoxiously large here. And this is going to be our left sail here, and I think I want it just a tiny bit bigger than that. I still want it to fit nicely in my hoop, so I'm always mindful of that. So we're going to need to make that a little bit smaller. And feeling like that's right about where I want it to be. Let me go ahead and change my color here. And that's right about where I want to be. It's almost a little bit like stamping, if that makes any sense. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and flip this design, and for the life of me, I cannot get the X and Y axis correctly. Okay, that is going to be our second sail here, and I want it to go ahead and be a little bit larger. I'm going to have to flip it just a tiny bit more here. Okay, and that's about what I want. I'm going to be making a few changes to this once I'm in Embird. Photoshop just gives me kind of a rough idea of where it is that I'm going with something. Let's go ahead and put that right about there. And let's go ahead and get that marked right about there. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and take out the unwanted pieces of this graphic that I'm working with, just because it's somewhat cleaner for me when I'm working in Embird. And so it's just less, I find it's less distracting for me, and the less distractions for me, the better. Really, truly. All right, so this is kind of the down and dirty sailboat graphic. We're going to go ahead and save this and prepare to work with it in Embird. So that's just what we choose to do. And then I'm going to go ahead and find my sailboat and import it here into Studio. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. And as you are working in Embird or as you're going about a digitizing process, it's really important to kind of go at it with an idea in mind of how exactly you are going to want something to stitch. So I've sort of figured that out myself, the way that I know that I envision this design and how I want it to stitch. And so I'm just going to go ahead and dive right into the digitizing process. Everybody does this a little bit differently. We've all got different ways that we've learned or different ways that we prefer to work ourselves. And it's like most things in life, there's not one right way to accomplish it. You just need to decide what works for you and what works best in your particular workflow. A lot of people, for example, will snap to grid. That's just not something that I personally do, but there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, now knowing that I am going to run a center mast here, I'm going to choose not to finish this edge that runs along here of my sailboat sail. I'm just going to finish the edges that are not going to be covered by the mast. And that's these edges here. Go ahead and set up my stitching with our vintage stitching that we've been using a lot of this summer. It's quick and efficient. It's got a unique look to it, and we just really enjoy it. Then I'm going to move on to the other sail here. Go ahead and plot my stitches. And I think that I'm going to choose to make this one narrower than what I made it in Photoshop, just so that I'm achieving a little bit more balance on the design itself. I'm going to choose to go there. No right way, no wrong way. That's just a personal preference. That's how I've decided that I wanted this design to be. And I like that. I personally like to use black for my placement stitching and white over here for my tack down stitching, because I like to buy the black and the white on the big king spools. I make all of my designs this way so that I don't have to have giant king spools of everything that I use. I'm only purchasing king spool of black and white, which I'm going to use a lot of anyway. So again, there's no right way or wrong way to go about that. It's just kind of the way that I choose to do things myself. So before I get started on this next section here, I am going to go ahead and line these up. Again, some people snap to grid. I just don't work that way, and I don't know. Can't tell you why that is. It's just kind of, you get into a habit of the way that you run your software or your machines, and that's not the way that I personally do it, but there's nothing wrong with doing it that way. I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to make this sail navy. And again, the color is something that you can really determine yourself, obviously, in your software program of choice. And so there we go. There's our cute little vintage stitch. And I'm happy with that. All right. Check it out there. That looks good to me. We're going to go ahead now and put our mast in. And we want to be sure that we start here underneath the edge of our boat so that the end of the mast is hidden and not flopping around. And we're going to bring it up here to the top. And choose to make that brown. And I have kind of a little trick up my sleeve here that I've been thinking about as I decided how I wanted to do this sailboat, because, you know, if someone else has done it and done it well, there's no need to do it again. But I sort of had an idea of how I wanted to add a little bit of dimension to a sailboat design. My customers, my shirt customers especially, seem to really appreciate those little small touches that just kind of kick it up a notch. So I designed this with a little something special in mind here, and we're going to have to reorder in just a second how this is stitching in order to accommodate this fun little thing that I had in mind. We're going to go ahead and add a dimensional ribbon flag to our sailboat. And something important for me here is to be sure that I'm showing myself where I want the end of my ribbon to be so that it's securely tucked underneath this row of satin stitching that forms our mast. And then this will actually tack it down for me. So that first line, the black line over here along this side, is going to show me that I don't want my ribbon to go any further than that line there. This line that I just placed here is actually going to go ahead and do the tack down for me, and I envision my ribbon coming out in this direction off of the boat. So that's how we're going to do that. But then we need to go ahead and reorder this so that it tucks neatly underneath our mast. What we're going to go ahead and do here now is we're going to go ahead and finish off our boat. And again, there's no right way or wrong way to go about the digitizing here. I know some people who would prefer to do the work on half of the boat and then mirror it to finish off the other side, and that's a great time saver. It's just not the way that I learned or that my mind works, and so it's just not the way that I choose to do it. But there's no right way or wrong way to do this. There's more than one way to get from point A to point B. Okay, that is our placement stitching. This is our tack down stitching. Go ahead and line those up. And then this is going to go ahead and be our vintage stitch that finishes off our fabric edges for us. I'm going to go ahead and be sure that we're lined up here. All right, and that looks good to me. Looks like we have all of our elements. I can see already that I didn't generate these stitches up here for my mast, so I'm going to go ahead and go back in and do that. There we have that. Might need to go ahead and adjust the density on this. I feel good with that. All right. And that looks about like I had envisioned in my mind and about how I kind of saw this all coming together.